The NFL has always prided itself on being a league where merit and performance determine who steps on the field, but in Cleveland, a storm has been brewing around Shadur Sanders and the curious refusal to give him a fair shot. The Browns have leaned on the old familiar excuse: rookies aren't ready. They need time. They must be protected. But for many, this reasoning feels less like careful player development and more like a smokescreen. Broadcasters, analysts, and former legends of the game are beginning to tear into that narrative, questioning why a quarterback with Sanders' preseason performance and poise continues to sit idly on the bench while the team struggles on offense. G. Bush, one of the most outspoken voices on the matter, delivered a blistering critique. He ridiculed the idea that young quarterbacks are delicate flowers who must be shielded from the field as though one bad play would ruin them forever. His stance was simple and bold: prove you can't do it. Let Sanders play, let him fail if he must, but don't suffocate him with excuses. To Bush, this wasn't a matter of readiness. It was about reluctance. The Browns weren't protecting Sanders, they were avoiding him. And the longer they stalled, the more glaring that reluctance became. Dan Orlovsky, a former quarterback turned analyst, echoed that frustration. He called out head coach Kevin Stefanski directly, demanding an explanation for why Sanders remained sidelined despite showing in preseason that he could handle pressure and perform with confidence. Orlovsky didn't mince words. If Stefanski truly believed Sanders wasn't ready, he owed fans more than vague promises and hollow reassurances. He needed evidence, something tangible to justify why a team starved for offensive production would ignore a quarterback many believe could spark life into the franchise. For Orlovsky, the Browns' continued refusal to let Sanders see the field was nothing short of baffling, and his critique added fuel to a growing fire that the Browns' quarterback hierarchy is being mishandled. Then came the words of Eric Dickerson, the Hall of Fame running back, who pushed the conversation into deeper territory. Dickerson didn't see this as merely a football decision. He saw race at the heart of the issue. In a powerful interview, he stated plainly that black players, and especially black quarterbacks, are not afforded the same leeway as their white counterparts. Speaking not out of bitterness but with conviction, Dickerson explained that black players often can't speak out, can't stumble, can't take the same risks, because the system isn't built to forgive them. His comments weren't an attack on white players. They were an indictment of the double standards entrenched in the sport. And in Sanders' case, Dickerson suggested something more insidious: an organizational resistance to both Shadur and his father, Deion Sanders. For all of Deion's charisma and leadership, there are those who see him as too loud, too confident, too much of a disruptor. In Dickerson's view, the Browns' refusal to give Shedeur a chance was less about readiness and more about keeping both him and his father in their place. That claim struck a chord because, as Dickerson pointed out, even seasoned analysts like Mel Kiper Jr., who has studied drafts for over 30 years, admitted he had never seen anything quite like the way Sanders was being handled. For Kiper, this wasn't business as usual. It was unusual, troubling, and demanded scrutiny. And once that observation was made, it became impossible to dismiss the controversy as mere fan impatience. Something wasn't adding up. The Browns, sensing the growing outrage, sent quarterback coach Bill Musgrave out to try and calm the storm. Musgrave painted a picture of patience and preparation. Sanders, he explained, was getting reps, being developed, receiving careful coaching designed to make him not just ready, but over-prepared for the moment his chance finally arrived. He assured fans that nothing was being overlooked, that the organization was invested in Sanders' future. Yet even those reassurances felt hollow to many. After all, what good is preparation if the door never opens? Fans and analysts alike wanted to see results, not promises. Meanwhile, Kevin Stefanski's seat was heating up. The Browns' offense remained stagnant under veteran quarterback Joe Flacco, who was struggling to produce points even as the defense put on heroic performances week after week. Against the Packers, it was the defense alone that carried the team to victory, masking the offensive flaws for one more week. But for how long could the defense be expected to hold the line? As wins turned into narrow escapes and losses piled up, the clamor for Sanders only grew louder. Analysts began whispering that Stefanski's refusal to act might cost him his job. If he continued to stick with Flacco while keeping Sanders locked on the bench, the franchise might soon be looking for a new head coach. At the same time, a new wrinkle entered the picture: trade rumors. Reports surfaced that the Miami Dolphins had shown interest in acquiring Sanders, with his market value climbing despite his lack of NFL snaps. For fans, this was salt in the wound. The thought that the Browns might trade away a young quarterback with Sanders' potential without ever giving him a fair chance in Cleveland was enraging. Journalists declared that if such a trade happened, it would prove the Browns never truly believed in Sanders. The organization would be sending the clearest signal possible. They weren't sold on his progress, no matter what they said publicly. Some analysts went further still, accusing the Browns of being a corrupt organization, clinging to a broken system that values protecting veterans over empowering rookies. They argued that the team was more afraid of exposing their veterans' weaknesses than they were of giving young players a chance to shine. In their eyes, the Browns' treatment of Sanders was about preserving the status quo and maintaining control, even if it meant wasting the prime years of a promising quarterback. As the weeks dragged on, the controversy stopped being just about Sanders. It became a referendum on how the NFL treats young black quarterbacks, how organizations cling to outdated excuses, and how systemic barriers still linger in a sport that claims to be all about merit. Dickerson's voice carried that message with force. This isn't just about football. It's about who gets opportunities, who doesn't, and why. For Sanders, the situation has become a test of patience and resilience. He continues to put in the work, to stay locked in during practice, to build chemistry with his scout team. He's doing everything asked of him, but the spotlight remains out of reach. For the Browns, every week he sits becomes another week of mounting questions. How long can they afford to ignore the calls for change? How long before fans turn frustration into outright rebellion? The clock is ticking and the Browns know it. The decision they make with Shadur Sanders won't just define their season, it could define the trajectory of the franchise for years to come. If they let him walk, they risk watching him thrive somewhere else, becoming the star they desperately needed but refused to embrace. If they keep holding him back, they risk losing not just games, but the trust of their own fan base. But if they give him his chance, they might just find that the quarterback they've been searching for all along has been on their sideline this entire time. So now the questions fall to you. Do you think the Browns are truly protecting Sanders by keeping him off the field? Or are they hiding behind excuses that no longer hold weight? Is this about football readiness, or is it about race, power, and fear of failure? Should Sanders demand his release and find a fresh start elsewhere, or should he wait for his opportunity in Cleveland? And most importantly, will the Browns regret this hesitation for years to come? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss the next deep dive into the stories shaking up the NFL.